anyone who spends their like more than like a fleeting moment of their time talking about tankies is just like a complete fucking idiot liberal. That's my take. Generally, what they're doing with that is basically grouping anyone who isn't like not even a social democrat, because these people generally aren't even radical enough to be actual social democrats, in with like, you know, the most batshit insane Bay Areaite sort of people and grouping them, all of them together as if they're like this one amorphous blob. Basically, what the word tanky means is that you are to the left of me and that makes me uncomfortable. It's literally mean nothing more than that. There's a spectrum of what these people call tanky, and it goes from like anyone with a remotely materialist critique of society to like, you know, random China stan genocide deniers and stuff. The act, like, honestly, the word is just a complete joke. It's just a complete and total joke, because according to the average liberal, like if you're cautious about like not supporting you know, US foreign policy goals and stuff, you like actually look into stuff instead of just immediately saying, oh yeah, this thing is amazing and good, you are a tanky. Like ContraPoints, for example, in her video on envy, she has like this part at the end where she's like, oh, these people will not settle for anything less than revolution, but I don't see them out in the streets trying to get us higher wages and healthcare and to reform the police. And it's like, yeah, because those things wouldn't be systemic change. Like, is that really the best thing that you can imagine? Like getting some higher wages, the police being slightly less bad, having like public healthcare. Is that really the best thing you could possibly imagine? I mean, if that's the best thing you can possibly imagine, that's all achievable within like the next 5 or 10 years. And what then? You're just gonna be like, oh, we have our ideal society now. We're not gonna do anything anymore. I assume that if you're on the left, you want to abolish the wage relation entirely. You want to abolish the police entirely. You know, you don't just want people to have health care. You want healthcare to be decommodified. But none of the things that someone like ContraPoints or these other sort of social liberals, I'll call them that, because they're not even social democrats in the end, really. Like their prescriptions do not fundamentally change anything. Their prescriptions are normal neoliberal sort of stuff, right? There's plenty of neoliberal countries with police forces that don't mass murder black people. There's plenty of neoliberal countries with universal healthcare, like a commodified, competitive universal healthcare system that essentially forces people to choose between private healthcare providers. Argentina is one, for example. And you know, there's plenty of countries where unions have sort of been integrated into the state and are allowed to like sort of hold negotiations with businesses mediated by the government to raise their wages and stuff. So if that's the end all be all of your society, then you're a neoliberal. You're not even a social democrat, you're just a neoliberal, because social democracy is explicitly using a capitalist state to favor the working class over the other classes. It's not just having welfare programs. So I wouldn't even call those people social democrats. So basically for them, a social democrat is like a tanky, right? If you're cautious about the way that you approach these questions, you're a tanky basically. If you don't immediately like denounce like the list of countries and figures that these people think that you should immediately have to denounce to be considered a human being, you are a tanky. And this list, you know, it includes people like, you know, nuanced figures like Fidel Castro, stuff like that. The whole idea with tanky is that people, essentially internet personalities and their moronic fans, are essentially trying to like push the Overton window right and right and right, righter and righter and righter, trying to make us as a leftist being further to the right and further to the right as possible, and then excluding as many people who are further to the left than that as possible. You know, the vast majority of people called tankies by these complete and utter NPCs are not even remotely tankies in the sense of like, you know, like basically a Stalinist who supports Stalinist repression is how the word was originally coined. You know, not just someone who has like a nuanced critique of Stalin, like, you know, someone like, for example, I would say that Stalin economically was pretty good in terms of the progress that the USSR made during his time in power, but most of the atrocities that he committed were completely unnecessary and did absolutely fucking nothing to facilitate that. So there's no justification for them, right? That, like, the fact that I just don't say Stalin bad without like any sort of caveat, the fact that I like talk about it, like I actually like have more than one sentence to say about it, makes me a tanky to these people. Basically, if you have like more than a one sentence analysis on any topic, and you actually like look in on any sort of topic deal of like past leftism or even leftism today, and you actually look into it, you are a tanky. You know, if you don't explicitly support liberal democracy, you are a tanky. It's just a complete joke. There's two terms coming from these sorts of internet personality circles, mostly US based internet personality circles, that I think completely disqualifies someone as having anything meaningful to say. Anyone who uses the word tanky, for one, and anyone who uses the word lefty. Someone who uses the word lefty is essentially like grouping a fucking ridiculous amount of people together. A lot of people have nothing to do with one another whatsoever. It's basically a way for liberals to group themselves in with like people who are actually on the left by using like this generic term that doesn't actually say anything about like your framework, your ideology, just lefty, like very generic. So basically, you use the word tanky, use the word lefty, you're disqualified. You don't, you're not someone worth discussing anything with. For one, lefty is basically used to excuse people who consider themselves to be on the left but don't actually have any sort of coherent ideology that could remotely be considered left. And tanky is basically used to discount anyone further to the left of me who I don't like. And it's mostly used by people who, ironically, are at best in the center. Internet personality, leftism, has cultivated like a fairly large group of people who I don't think matter in real life at all, but who are really annoying online, who basically just like to throw out the magic words at anyone who makes them feel a little bit insecure about the fact that they might not be the end all be all of politics. That internet debate man might not be the end all be all of politics. Basically, that's it. That's the tanky take. Like, if you want to use the word tanky, like the actual fucking tanky, like, the China stands, the moronic Grover Fur readers, those types of people. And I don't say China stand like as if China is bad, by the way. I think China is obviously far better than the USA, and its system, isn't great in terms of social provision, but it's something that capitalist countries should seek to replicate. It's like poor capitalist countries should probably seek to replicate if they want to develop. But that said, I don't support China. I don't support Cuba for that matter. I don't support any country or movement or leader. I think some of them are better than others, but that doesn't mean that I support them, But my point is, like, the people who basically have replaced that personality with Chinese nationalism, those are the people who, like, I think these people generally have in mind when they use the word tanky. But then they also take it and just refer to anyone at all who, like, thinks about things, who doesn't just immediately like discount China as evil. The actual sort of people these people have in mind, they call tankies, like, the Bay Area sphere. And that's like what, like 5,000 extremely loud and annoying people on Twitter? It's not an actual real thing, man. Wasting any time talking about these people aside from to laugh at them is just a total waste of time. But they kind of want people to believe that like it's sort of like, it's not just those people, right? It's everyone else. Anyone like further to the left than like a neoliberal who wants healthcare, free education, free university, etc., is automatically a tanky. Anyone who doesn't like uncritically support US imperialism, anyone who thinks that the world would be better if the US did not do intervention is a tanky. It honestly makes me tired to talk about this. It's difficult to talk about something like this in a coherent manner because the people who use this word aren't coherent, Like Xander Hall called me a tanky, for example. Like, does that even fucking mean? Xander Hall is like the greatest example of like a total NPC just throwing out the bad words to discount the people he doesn't like, right? Like, it's just an excuse not to engage. It's like a generic sort of fragile little Yankee liberal excuse to not engage with people who are further to the left with them, who they know are further to the left of them, legitimately so. It's an extremely online word. No one uses this fucking word in real life. You don't think that the USA should prop up a puppet government and do 20 years of civil war, killing hundreds of thousands more people? That's so fucking tanky of you, man. God, I can't believe you're such a fucking tanky. Typical tanky.